But I've found over the last probably year and a half or so, the more conversations, the more Zoom calls I can get a buyer on, the more work I can get out of them because I'm building a relationship with them. I'm forming, you know, dare I say a friendship. I'm able to speak a little bit more candidly. Hey, we have some open capacity here. Do you have anything that you want to throw in there? I'm creating these conversations that aren't just sales related. They're how can I help you related? How can I make you better at your job?
Welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast, where we uncover the stories behind successful machine shops and their owners. By interviewing current and former shop owners, we dig deep to unveil their secrets of success and the struggles and challenges they've overcome on their paths to building thriving shops. We aim to elevate how important the machining industry is and inspire others by highlighting why owning a shop can be a great vehicle to creating jobs, stimulating the economy, and creating wealth. Here's our host, former machine shop owner himself, Paul Van Meter.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Machine Shop Mastery. This is a special episode. I got to sit down for a second time with Ashley Parent from Mills Machine Works in Boston, and boy, this was a special one, as I said. So Ashley was on episode number 50, and I might suggest you pause this right now and go back and listen to episode 50 if you have not. But in late 2022, her father, who had started, this shop that she now runs, became very sick. Within days of sort of signing over the business to her and her siblings, he passed away. And they found themselves both battling, immense grief and trying to figure out and stabilize this business that they had worked in, but not really in the same capacity to, of course, be the ultimate decision makers. Things got very tough for them. They lost, as she said, over 50% of their revenue almost immediately because of the nature of the work that really relied on her father's expertise. I reached out when she started sharing on LinkedIn, had her on the show. And I know she got support from lots of other people in the industry, but through an amazing turn of events, some really cool things happened. I will not spoil it. Let her tell that story, but it's a truly incredible story, and it for me embodies just how amazing this industry is, how supportive the community is, and how having a lot of perseverance and grit and being smart about the way you approach things can really lead to incredible results. So without further ado, let's go hear the next chapter of Mills Machine Works with Ashley Parent. Ashley, welcome back to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here again.
Yes. So for those listening, Ashley was on episode 50, a nice round milestone number. And it's probably fitting that maybe that was the number because she's back with a very different story than what we told last time. So, Ashley, for those that haven't heard that first one, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the business and then what had happened leading up to us, getting together to record.
Yeah, so my parents started the business, Mills Machine Works, in 1995, and the business was literally built from the ground up. It started in the basement of our first home. My mom handled the accounting, my dad handled the machining. But in 2022, he became very sick, and my siblings and I kind of stepped in to take over the business. Um, he officially signed the company over to us in September of 2022 and died a few days later.
Mm,
Um, it was really like a chaotic time to kind of step into this. But we had all
yeah.
been working here, so it made the most sense to just continue it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so while I might be the president of the company, this has really been a family effort. Um, my brother and my sister and I all bring different strengths to the company. And I don't think any one of us could have done this alone. Like we all needed each other to get through this. It was
Yeah.
um, it was a combination of grieving while simultaneously having to learn how to run and stabilize the company all at the same time. So the
Mm-hmm.
last few years have definitely been equal parts grief, growth, probably survival and rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And we've learned so much in the process. Um, it's just been it's been overwhelming at times, but I don't think I would have changed much of our learning experience.
Hmm. And what you shared the first time was the type of shop that Mills Machine Works was very much sort of design and build, very, complex processes that your dad was just an expert at. He
Yeah.
could design anything. I got the chance. Thank you so much for hosting a couple of us to come walk around your shop about a month or two ago.
Mhm.
And man, you could just feel the history there and see, the little sort of museum area where you have all the pictures and some of the early prototypes and things that your dad designed and built.
Yeah.
But what that meant was that because he was the brainchild behind all that work, that your customers that had relied on that type of service didn't trust you and your siblings to carry on that type of work. So you almost had to reinvent the entire company
Yeah.
to find different customers, different types of work. So maybe share, because I remember you sharing some LinkedIn posts, which is why I reached out to you. And then we had the story and the episode. But, it was pretty tight at times. Like you didn't have much work. Your spindles were just sitting empty. Just talk about some of those hard times you went through.
Yeah, right in the beginning, like you kind of said, we were really specialized. We were doing some job shop work, but we were really doing this reverse engineering, complex machinery. And when our dad passed away, he was the name and face of the company. So a lot of the companies we were working with were hesitant to continue to give us that type of work because he was the name and face. He was the
Hmm.
reputation. What they didn't know was that my brother had been working alongside my dad, helping him design these things the entire time. So we really had to kind of start to quickly pivot, um, and really start going for that job shop work. It was probably one of the biggest challenges that we faced is right off the bat, we lost about 50% of our revenue once he passed away.
Wow. And what did you do to rebuild that? How did you find new customers? I mean, I know I introduced you to a couple of folks after we spoke, but I'm sure there must have been a ton of work and a ton of effort to kind of reinvent what you did.
So the way that we historically had found work was through reputation and referrals, uh, through because of my father's relationships with people, and we had to really start to pivot. Um,
Mhm.
and if I'm being honest, sales is not my strong point. I don't think it. People say I'm really good at sales. I don't feel like I'm really good at sales. But I had to start really digging deep and kind of getting over my fear of reaching out to people. I
Mhm.
like you said, I started posting on LinkedIn. I started kind of gaining traction, getting noticed, telling our story. I took a very unique marketing approach, I guess, looking back. And I really just started building out and painting a picture for buyers as to why we were the best shop to come to. What made us special, how we stood out from the other competitors in the industry, and kind of just had to paint the picture that we're a small shop, you're gonna get our undivided attention. We specialized in all of these, reverse engineering things, so we can handle, complex projects and large projects and small projects, and really kind of just hitting the ground running and trying to tell as many people about us as physically possible was
Mhm.
really my sales strategy for a long time, and it definitely paid off.
So tell us about yeah, the work that came in, I mean, you don't need to name customers, of course, but just you started getting RFQs and started, getting small orders and then that started to build, or how did that work?
Yeah, so we just started getting more RFQs. We just kinda started increasing our, quoting volume, and if you can increase your quoting volume, you can increase your win rate
Mhm.
essentially. And I spent a lot of time, um, understanding what our numbers were. How much money did we need to make? What our hourly rates looked like? How much profit margin we needed, all to just be sustainable. And what I started to learn over time was that our hourly rate was different than I realized it was. Um,
Mm.
and I kind of had started to unbox the box I had put ourselves in for a while. And by
Okay.
doing that, I was able to bring in more profitable work while also
Hmm.
bringing in just the more work that we needed. But the volume never got unmanageable, but our sales were going up. And it
Mm-hmm.
really became a strategy of numbers, like how much work do we need versus sales, like dollar amount wise, versus how much work can we handle and find that sweet spot. So it
Mm-hmm.
really just became a game of numbers.
Hmm. And did you find that you were quoting too low or too high before you did this, all this analysis?
I was quoting too high because we were quoting
Okay.
at this reverse engineering hourly rate
Got
that
it.
I
Got
did
it.
not realize, wasn't necessarily not industry standard, but it wasn't industry standard for the wide range of customers I was trying to go after. Like I was only going after aerospace and defense because that's all we had worked with. So
Mm-hmm.
that hourly rate was too high to go after maybe the semiconductor industry or other industries because they can get those products
Sure.
much cheaper.
Right. So did you start doing more of a sort of, I don't know, call a blended rate, but a variable rate depending on the type of project you were quoting and the
Yeah.
type of customer?
It was definitely a variable rate if depending on the level of job because we still do the defense jobs. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
those come with a higher price tag because they usually require a higher priority.
Right.
With all the work that just keeps the spindles going, that's usually a much lower rate, but now I have that work to rely on. I know it's always coming in, it's always sitting there, so I can
Mm-hmm.
mix it with that higher dollar amounts, and really just keep our spindles nice and full.
Mm. Okay. I like it. So while while you can quote a lower amount, a lower hourly rate, that still provides you the opportunity to make a good margin on
Yeah.
work that you may not have won otherwise.
Yeah, there is a significant layer to how I'm able to achieve that now,
Mm-hmm.
um, through some strategic acquisition, which
Yeah, so you do want to get to that. You do want to get to that. Hey, it's Paul from Making Chips. If you've been burned by recruiters who don't understand manufacturing, you are not alone. That's exactly why we created HireMFG Leaders. We're not just recruiters, we're current and former shop owners, and we know what it takes to lead in this industry. Whether you're hiring your next operations leader, sales manager, or production supervisor, we'll help you find someone who actually fits. Learn more at makingchips.com/hire. So how long did it take before you were sort of reliably at break even, on a monthly basis? You had enough, revenue where you weren't losing money.
I wanna say that kinda happened in, July June, July of 2025. That was when I finally looked at the books and said, "Wow, we're finally really hitting consistent numbers." Um,
Mhm.
so that was the first time I could see a trend. So realistically, that probably started in, like, March or February of 2025, but I wasn't
Mhm.
comfortable saying that until, like, June or July of
Right.
2025.
But that's a full 2 year, more than 2 years, uh, after your dad passed, so that must have been a hard time. Did you guys have just enough savings in the bank to weather those unprofitable years?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Wow. Okay. That's lucky that you had that.
Yeah.
What, what was it like, with your siblings and your employees? Just some of those meetings, like, here's what we're facing, here's what we're doing about it. Trying to keep your spirits up. I mean, I know what it's like to have periods where you're unprofitable, and it's very stressful, and sometimes almost existential. Like, what is going to happen? What are we going to do here?
Yeah, those conversations were really hard because we were looking at all possibilities. Like, do we just keep pushing? Do we believe in ourselves enough to know that this just might be a storm we're weathering? Or, is this a long-term problem that we're gonna have to kind of come to terms with and maybe shut down? So
Hmm.
those were some really hard conversations because at times we were all feeling differently. At a time where I'm like, maybe we should shut down. My siblings were like, no, we're almost there. And then, that the tables would turn and maybe my siblings were feeling that, but I'm seeing something different from like the sales side. And I'm like, no, we're almost there. It's gonna be fine. So I think we all
Hmm.
in our moments had that like, what are we doing here?
Hmm.
Do we
Yeah.
keep going? Are we gonna keep fighting? Type of reality. So they
Yeah.
were a lot of hard conversations. And I think at every different point, somebody else was kind of picking up the optimism, which is kind of what kept us going.
Oh, it's so important. And to me, it just underscores how challenging it must be a solo, shop owner. I had business partners all the way along at my shop, and I was so grateful to have, those guys to lean on. Because you're right, there's some days where you're full of energy and other days where you're just completely beat down. And yeah, and having someone else to sort of carry that optimism is meaningful. So yeah, doing that alone, gosh, respect to everyone out there that's doing it by themselves.
Yeah, there's no way that I could have handled this by myself, and my siblings would say the same thing.
Yeah. Were you able to employ all your employees the whole time, or did you have to do layoffs or partial hours or anything like that?
We did lay off one employee during that time. We were already kind of a small staff to start with. There was only 7 of us. We had
Mhm.
one employee leave and for a better opportunity and one employee that we had eventually had to lay off. And it was
Okay.
just 5 of us kind of moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You emailed me several months ago now and said, I have some very exciting news and things have really taken a turn and the community has kind of rallied, around you and so just yeah, share some of what happened.
So yeah, I got a call kind of out of the blue in August, like August 2025. It was not that long
Okay.
ago. Um, I don't know of how much he wants me to share who he is specifically, but he knew my mom through Rotary, and he just knew my dad through being in the industry. He was starting to think about an exit plan, and his neighbor, who happened to own a very successful plating company in the area, had just gone through an exit, and they were kind of having a conversation. And our name got brought up because his neighbor had heard through the grapevine what we were doing with the company and everything that we've kind of gone through and kind of defied all the odds that were kind of stacked against us for a while.
Mhm.
Um, so he ended up just calling me one afternoon, and the first conversation was, "Do you need employees?" And I was thinking to myself, like, "I got 5 machines. Employees is not really my issue right now."
Mhm.
And so we kinda started having these conversations that turned into, selling equipment, which turned into just kind of acquiring the whole business. Um, it was just
Wow.
kind of out of nowhere.
Mhm.
And what
And
really stood out to me during those first conversations was, he was his biggest concern was finding homes for his employees. That he
mhm.
wasn't concerned about selling his equipment, he wasn't concerned about getting the highest dollar amount for his company, like, he wanted to make sure all of his employees were taken care of, if his company was to shut down, and that really resonated with me because as a family company, like, you get really close to your employees and you don't want anybody to be left on the street or looking for a new job.
Mhm.
So what started as a conversation about hiring employees really turned into acquiring his entire company. And the more we talked, the capabilities kind of complemented each other. Like he was doing all production, we were doing all prototyping. It was just a really good fit. We weren't really
Mhm.
stepping on each other's toes. I wasn't absorbing, all of the same types of work. I was really diversifying my work for the first time in the company history, really getting into we had always been able to do production, but not at the volumes that we can do today.
Mhm.
And the culture like a family run shop, that right there was, you know, a seller right there.
Mhm.
Um, But what made it pretty intense is his timeline was almost not really negotiable because, um, his lease was ending, and he really had a very short amount of time to either sell his company or sell off his equipment. So we had about 6 months to find funding, to, negotiate the deal entirely, and then physically move, I think it was like 16 or 17 machines across town into my building
Wow.
while still running our day-to-day operations. Uh,
Sure.
that was
That's wild.
insanity. There were moments where I was like, "Is this gonna happen? Are we gonna make it to the other side?" But I think everyone knew what this opportunity meant for us as a company, and that
Hmm.
really just made, um, everything we went through worth fighting for. Yeah, yeah,
That is awesome. So, I mean, by the numbers, quite a bit bigger shop than you guys from employee count, machine wise.
yeah.
Um, after you had those conversations and realized that this opportunity was, was in front of you, what did you and your siblings talk about? Like, is this crazy, or like, what were those conversations like?
Um, those conversations were just very factual. Well, what do the sales say? Like, you know, what is his revenue like? Is
Hmm.
the investment that we have to put out, worth the risk?
Hmm.
We just took it from a very like factual. We just looked at
That's
the
smart.
facts.
That's smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to keep emotion out of it, you, especially with the way he approached us, because he was concerned. Like he didn't want to just let everybody out on the street and not have a job. Like so, there was that one little piece of it hanging in the back of my mind, like, he deeply cares for his employees and, like, he's looking for the best possible place for them to fall, and I think what made this much different than, like, a typical acquisition is it was very relationship driven and very trust driven from the beginning. He had to
Mm-hmm.
lay a lot out, on the table and be kind of vulnerable with, with, like, his fears for people that he felt were his family or he feels like they've been working together for so long. Some of these employees were there for 20 years, and they've built relationships, and yeah, so it was definitely
Hmm.
the emotion was there, but we try to look at it from a very factual
Right.
place.
Well, that's the way you'd have to approach those kinds of transactions. Was he able to provide, nice, clean financials that you trusted in and believed?
Yep, we went back and forth a little bit. I had a lot of questions. Um, I had my accountant review some stuff, but it was pretty clean. There wasn't a whole lot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then tell us about how you got the funding for it. Was it like an SBA loan or some other mechanism or something like that?
Well, it's seller financed at the end of the day.
It's okay.
Because the timeline was too short for me to get proper
Hmm.
funding, but maybe once we've kind of I mean, we're only a couple months out from the actual move, maybe 2 months today
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
first initial move. So maybe when the dust settles, I'll go after an SBA loan or something like that so I can pay him off, quicker.
Right.
But for right now, it's it is seller
Oh,
finance.
that's very nice of him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, he this was a mm, a very untypical acquisition.
Yeah. And that does take a lot of trust that you're gonna, be a good steward of the employees of the company, make the right financial decisions so you can keep paying that note.
Yes. Yep, and he's been
Wow.
this time around has been totally different because he's still here. He works in an office right behind me. He's
Oh,
helping.
nice.
Yeah, he's helping me understand. He's teaching us different aspects of running his business that he found successful. We didn't have
Mhm.
that mentor when my dad unexpectedly passed away, so I'm soaking up all of the knowledge that I can get from him while I still can. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah.
How long do you both expect that he'll stay around?
He said 12 weeks, but we'll see.
Oh, that's not a long time.
No, but
Okay.
he's such a great guy. I know if I had any questions, I can call him.
Sure. Okay. Wow. So this was almost entirely or entirely new customer logos, not ones you'd already served.
We had a
You know, tell
few customers that were same, but
Okay,
all new customers.
nice. And, yeah, what was that transition like moving into more production type work?
I mean, we're still in the midst of that. Luckily, his team is solid. Like they are a well-oiled machine. I think that my biggest challenge has been just understanding their timelines because I'm used to like 2 or 3 weeks. Our customers want everything in 2 or 3 weeks, but with production, we're looking at 8 to 10 weeks because we're
Hmm.
doing huge volume. And I d from the shop floor's perspective, I don't think they're having many challenges. I think it's all internal challenges and me trying to understand, like, new timelines and new price points and, job costing from a different perspective. It's all base level the same, but, there's different things that go into production versus prototype, and
Hmm.
we're very, very lucky. There has not been a whole lot of shop floor integration issues. It's really the internal
Hmm.
work that needs to be addressed.
Got it. Got it. Did you start doing any kind of like all team meetings or any kind of different ways that you ran things or communicated information to people or set the schedules or things like
Yeah.
that?
So we do the shop floor has their own meetings to talk about what's coming and going throughout the week, but I started pulling like we have leads, like department leads. I bring them into our monthly meetings. I'm trying to help them understand the numbers and what the sales truly mean and how different inputs affect the outputs and all of that. So I'm really trying to build a team that doesn't just understand the manufacturing side of the business, but how the business runs as a whole.
Okay. Nice. And is that gone smooth? It got gone well?
Yeah, they've been really receptive to it. I always obviously encourage like ask questions if you don't understand something. I really want you to understand how the business works, from a financial side as well.
Hmm. That's good. Um, tell us a bit about going and meeting those new customers and, giving them assurance that things were going to go well and you'll continue to support them. And I'm sure you both went together, I'm guessing. And
We
I
did.
don't know how many of them were local. Did you go visit all of them? Just tell us all about that.
We went to visit the local ones, and we kind of submitted a formal joint letter for the ones that were farther away. But everyone was, really receptive to the change, and I just went and showed them who I was and what I'm doing and where I want to take the company and how I would plan on supporting them. And it just became an open book. I answered any questions that they had, and it was every customer came over. That's that's been the best part.
Wow, that's awesome. Did that shop have any kind of certifications that they brought across and or anything that you had that you had to merge together? Just how about
We
that
have
side?
almost all of the same certifications. The only one that
Okay.
they had that we didn't have was the Hub Zone certification,
Okay.
which is, just it's fairly easy to submit for. We haven't done it quite yet, but
Hmm.
in replace of the Hub Zone, we have women owned business.
Paul, tell me about your trip to Italy.
I went there with the NTMA and we got to tour SMW Autoblok, two different facilities. Absolutely blew me away. World class, enormous places. I can't even count how many machines there were, but so much automation. One of the most incredible takeaways for me was the breadth of what they made. I did not know they made so many work holding products and automation products. And I loved watching a big chuck machine a little chuck. So they were machining chucks in huge lathes. I thought that was super fun.
Yeah, you introduced them to me after you came back, and they've been to my shop. And the ideas they have to like breathe new life into some of my machines and the tools and the jobs that we're running was just shocking.
And then one of the coolest things is we're bringing this new automated pallet delivery system, the Hennig workflow, to market. And guess what the interface is? It's SMW 0 point locators. It's really sweet.
We're getting ready to get some of those.
So, how do people find SMW Autoblock to look through that massive catalog of products?
It's SMW Autoblok, BLOK.com.
Yeah, get rid of that C. SMW Autoblock, BLOK.com.
All right. Well, what an amazing turn of events. I was so incredibly pleased to get that letter from you, that email from you out of the blue, and just thrilled that things had taken such a positive turn. And it's amazing that this gentleman had heard your story, because you went public with it and didn't kind of suffer in silence. And he respected, the way that you had handled it and and that's what drew him to call you up. Or
Yeah.
that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. It just goes to show that when you are willing to be upfront and, kind of share your struggles, people really care. People really are good. They people are good people, and they can only help what they know. So if you're willing to kind of share that you need help, people want to help. And that has been probably the most um amazing thing about this whole journey is that I could have just closed my doors and quietly walked away, but
Hmm.
I asked for help. I said, this is the struggle I'm going through." And the entire community really rallied behind me and said, "There's no reason for you to close your doors. We're here to help you." And that really just goes to show the power of this community and how large but small we are at the same time. And
Hmm.
it's been amazing.
I love that. Yeah, it is such a great community, so supportive, so collaborative. Um, and even in, the small things, hey, I need this special boring head that I don't have. Could you loan it to me?
Yep.
To, hey, my business is on the brink. What can who can you introduce me to? Advice can you give me? Can you just give me a shoulder to cry on for a minute? I mean, just all those things. It's truly amazing. So what's sort of the vision from here? Uh, are you guys setting, 1, 3, 5-year goals, and just tell us about what you think the future holds?
Yeah, so I have like a 5-year goal. My goal is to kind of scale the company from where we're at today to about 5 million in sales. I have a very long strategic plan that I've started to slowly
Nice.
introduce to the shop floor, and they all go, okay. But they're supportive. I would really like to, upgrade some of the equipment, purchase more equipment. We are so full with work this
It
month.
is tight there. It is tight.
But I will find a way. Um, yeah, I wanna grow the company, um, about $3 million, but in 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, so more than a good doubling. So that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, do you think you can do that in the same footprint, or will you need to, move or expand or
If my brother had it his way, we would be moving. I'm going to try to do it strategically through multiple shifts and, strategic work.
okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And because you do more production work, is automation going to be part of that journey?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at some automation. Um, I'm sure I'm not the only shop owner that struggles to find,
Oh,
good
undoubtedly.
labor. So if I can kinda offset some of that with some automation, that's probably the route that we'll go.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on your turning centers, of course, bar feeders and, parts catchers and all the things you'd need to just run unattended. Um, on the milling side, obviously, cobots and robots are one option. I've been super impressed recently, and I had a guest on Machine Shop Mastery, gosh, just a few episodes ago, who had designed and built this really cool thing. It's called company called Weinberg Machine out in Nevada, but they ended up partnering with Hennig and made this thing called the Workflow, which basically can bolt right on the side of almost any
Oh, wow.
vertical mill or 5-axis, and it adds like 40 pallets in a relatively small footprint and pretty affordable. So I would definitely consider looking at that thing
Yeah.
if you yeah, wanna be able to sort of run through the night, run on weekends, or even just run during the daytime while your machinists set up other jobs or do other things on other pieces of equipment, so that is cool.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, tell us, you know, I mean, maybe the answer is obvious, ingesting a company that's 2 or 3 times your size, but what are the biggest challenges you're facing today?
It's been a few things. Obviously, when we did not get traditional loans for this, so we have the usual, cash flow buckles where we absorbed a higher payroll, and now we're buying material in a much larger volume than we ever have before. So, we have the
Mhm.
typical, cash flow issues, nothing like in the past though, so I will take that.
Hmm.
But, one of the bigger challenges I've been seeing in the industry is, um, especially in production, people just send you the purchase orders for the last known price, and they're not really quoting out the jobs anymore,
Mm,
so they're sending you a PO with a price, but the material is more than the price on the PO, and then I have to go back to them and say, "Hey, just so you know, I gotta increase this price because the material is the
sure.
cost of the PO." So we're really starting to balance the rising costs of doing business in manufacturing, and, one of the bigger challenges is trying to help buyers understand why our costs are increasing
Mm,
the way they
mm-hmm.
are,
Yep.
I mean, I'm in Massachusetts, all of my tooling vendors are screaming that tooling costs are going up anywhere from 15 to 30%. It's, you know
Oh, I mean, I know actual carbide is like 6 to 10 times higher than it once was, even
Yeah,
just a couple years ago. So if you're using carbide end mills or inserts, those must be many times higher.
yeah, we have the carbide scrappers that are just constantly coming in our building asking us for
Mhm.
carbide, and they're willing to pay up to, like, $55 a pound for carbide right now. It's insane. So, trying to explain that to our buyers and just say we're just trying to keep up with the inflation costs, they don't necessarily wanna hear that, but
Sure.
it's the truth, and, you know, um over the last few years, we've grown pretty quickly, and especially with the acquisition, and manufacturing can create like a lot of pressure behind the scenes. You integrate people, systems, workflows, equipment, and then like customer expectations on top of that, and cash flow all at the same time. And then trying to paint a picture for your buyer that like raw materials are on the rise and tooling costs are on the rise, and everyone wants raises, and electricity is through the roof too, and you're just kinda trying to cram all that information into, "This is why my price is the way it is," and it's a lot to balance as a shop owner.
Mhm. Hardest business in the world.
Yeah.
So how do those conversations go? Do you, like, send a spreadsheet with, like, here's or just, like, do a screen share or, just sort of itemize it in an email of here's the things that are broken down into what makes our cost?
Yes, I kinda just try to give as much information that it makes sense, um, trying to almost justify the rising cost, but also really explain, like, these are the things that we're seeing in the industry, and if I was to do it at the price that you said, that I am paying to make your part, you're not paying me to make your part.
Right,
And
right.
a lot of times it's an email followed up with a new quote. I would say 70% of the buyers are starting to understand it. There's still the 30% that don't like it, but,
Of course.
there's always
And are
some.
and are they just going out and getting prices somewhere else, and maybe they find a better price, maybe they realize that everyone is quoting higher now and they come back to you anyway?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, good for you for keeping track of the numbers that closely, because I know a lot of shops just kind of wing it and throw out a number and might be pricing something for the same, for years ago, and they're actually losing money. They just don't realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, with that sort of financial education, I guess you've gotten, um, was that just seat of the pants learning as you go? Had you and your dad already gone through those things prior to his passing, or how did you
No,
learn
that
this
was all
stuff?
learning as I went. He did not look at numbers. I swear he just wrote what he thought it was across the top of a print and said, "Here, put this on a quote for me." After digging
Okay.
through his numbers, I was like, "How did we make any money all these years?" So it was really like talking to people, understanding you know, what important things I needed to be paying attention to, and then just really hyper fixating on those things until
Hmm.
I felt like I knew them inside and out.
Okay. Okay. Um, and beyond material price, or, beyond price increases, any other sort of major things you're dealing with or learning as you go?
I mean, I think leadership in general has been a learning curve because I went from kind of just managing a few employees to now we have 13, seemingly overnight. So
Hmm.
we're really forced into learning leadership very quickly, and I think
Hmm.
I take a different perspective when it comes to my leadership. I really want to empower people to take responsibility and to feel like they are valued and that their opinions matter and their ideas matter. I'm almost like a hands off kind of leader. Like I
Hmm.
show my vision and I ask everybody how are we going to get there together. And um, I've been told that that is a unique approach in this industry.
It's a wise and good approach, I can tell you that.
Yeah,
And it's not something that everyone naturally gravitates to.
yeah.
Is that just how you felt like it should be, or did you read some leadership books or talk to a mentor, or how did you arrive at this method?
It was a combination of things. I think, my personal experience with knowing almost the bare minimum coming into this business and having to rely on so many outside sources for information and ideas, I think I just took that, well, if I'm going outside for all of these ideas, w maybe the team also has great ideas, and if I can empower them to bring the ideas to the table and to execute the ideas and to, take responsibility of their ideas, I'm building a team that really feels valued and we can do a lot of good together. When the new shop moved in, I had their two shop managers. One ran the lathe department, one ran the milling department. Come tell us how they wanted their shop laid out. They're the ones that have to work in it, not me.
Okay.
How do they want it to be laid out? How do they want their workflows to go? What makes the most sense for the work that they do? And I really wanted them to feel like they were in control of that because it doesn't affect me at the end of the day. They're the ones that have to work in that environment, and I want them
Hmm.
to, make their jobs as easy as possible.
I love that idea. That's great. So, speaking of which, that makes me think of a question we didn't ask before. How did the announcement of this acquisition happen with mostly with their, this other gentleman's employees? Did you go over there and like, "Hey, hello, here's here's Ashley," or yeah, tell us how that went.
Yeah, well, I started it started with me going through the front door for a lot of our meetings, and, then it started with me coming through the back door, kinda just letting myself in. I think everybody was starting to get a little suspicious, like, "Who is this lady just wandering through the building?" And then probably right after Christmas, I think, we let everybody know, like, we called them into the break room, and he introduced me and kinda told them the plan, and, um, we really let them know, like, we are trying to do as minimal changes as possible. We let them know how much we, are culture aligned and how we wanted to do we wanted to take what he was already doing and apply it to the employees, like, so that they had the least amount of change as possible. Um, Luckily, 2 years ago, they were a quarter of the mile down the road from us, and then
Hmm.
they moved across town, so they were actually coming right back to where they they had started 2 years
Okay.
ago. So it was really important to us to let them know that the only thing that really is changing is the building that they're working out of and the name that they're working for, but that they can expect the same things from us as he was providing them. Would it give them
Okay.
health insurance and
Right.
all of those, paid time off. We wanted them to know that not much was changing.
And how did that conversation go? Did you have a lot of questions right away? Were people mostly quiet?
Well, mostly
Um,
quiet, and then
yeah,
I gave them all an opportunity to come talk to me privately and individually, and I had some generic questions, um, and I knew, you know, with any big change, I could sense some hesitancy,
of
but
course. Absolutely.
I then spent the following weeks really trying to be in that shop a lot more and letting them get to know me and getting to know them, and my siblings started coming over and introducing themselves, and then, you know, they came to our shop, they saw our space, and we could just feel the excitement start to build the closer it
Mm,
got to the actual move. Because it was, like,
awesome.
from January to February. We had a very short window to pull this off.
Yeah, in the middle of winter too
Oh, yeah.
in Boston. Um, how did that move actually go? How long did it take? And you must did you have I didn't see your shop before all the new machines were there, but did you have quite a bit of open space?
So my dad was a bit of a hoarder. From November to, like, January, um, we strategically wound down the amount of work that we were taking as Mills Machine Work so that my brother could really focus on clearing out a good 60% of the shop because it was just
Mm,
filled with things that we hadn't touched in I don't even know how long. So
right.
the prep for the move took about 3 months because it was just pretty
Okay.
much my brother doing it by himself. Um, and then the
Wow.
move itself happened over 4 days.
4
So
days.
4 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it was about 2 or 3 weeks before we were, like, fully up and at max capacity again.
Okay. Was that hard to, you said, sort of wind down some of the work you were doing? That must have created like a dip in revenue for a few months, which
It
means
did.
you may not have been making money and you had to weather that.
We were at the break even. We were taking on just enough work to make sure all our bills got covered and everyone stayed paid, but we weren't
Okay.
profitable during that time. We just there was no way we could be profitable and get this done. We had to kinda
Right.
pick one.
Okay. Wow. It smells like a smart choice. In manufacturing, growth isn't accidental, it's engineered. But a lot of suppliers are still building their pipeline on outdated lists, inconsistent follow up, and hope based marketing, hoping their website will somehow bring in leads. Gabe Draper, the founder of Factor, knows that struggle. Years ago, he ran a shop that went bankrupt, not because of quality, but because he didn't have a steady way to generate new opportunities. That experience is what led him to build Factor. Factor helps suppliers create consistent sales opportunities by combining targeted outreach with marketing that puts you in front of the right buyers. Their team finds the right companies, starts real conversations, and sets qualified meetings. So if your pipeline swings with referrals or seasonality, Factor brings a system that puts you back in control. And for listeners of this show, Factor is offering a free custom report that highlights the best opportunities in your industry, plus a list of real companies that match what you do. Request yours at factormfg.com/chips. That's FACTUR mfg.com/chips. So, what would, having gone through everything you've gone through, everything you've learned in the last few years, what's your best advice for shops today, whether they're, yeah, in whatever position they might find themselves in?
I think that the best piece of advice if I was to go back 2 years ago and talk to myself all over again, I would encourage myself to really understand what the numbers truly mean when it comes to running a shop. Um, I feel like a lot of family-owned shops especially, they're incredible at machining and problem solving, but they're not always the strongest at understanding the financial side of the operation. Understanding your true costs, your true capacity, what your margins truly are, where you're actually making money. Those are all incredibly important to know, and I knew almost none of that. I was just throwing things at a wall and seeing what stuck. I thought I understood the numbers, and I was very, very mistaken in the beginning. And not all growth is good growth. The first year I took over the company, I scaled the company from 400,000 to 650,000, but I was bleeding money because I did not understand the numbers that are attached to that dollar amount.
Mm,
So it wasn't the first year, it wasn't that we didn't have any work, it was that I was not understanding the numbers or quoting properly, and I was essentially paying to do a bunch of work.
wow.
Yeah.
How you also mentioned that you had learned that that you didn't need to quote as high an hourly rate sometimes. So tell me how those two things kind of play together. You know, you were taking some jobs at a loss, but you were quoting too high on other things. Yeah, talk about that a little bit if you can.
So I think what ended up happening was that I was quoting really high, with a high hourly rate. So in the beginning, I was quoting with this high hourly rate. So we were getting work, but what the work that we were getting, I was misquoting time-wise. So I was
Mm,
essentially not making all the
got it.
numbers work correctly. So even quoting at that higher dollar amount, we were maybe missing the mark by a few days worth of machine time.
Right. You thought it would take 10 hours. It actually took 30,
Yeah,
that
and
sort
that
of thing.
so when I had talk about the numbers, I'm talking about every single number involved from the time it takes to do something to the true cost of doing that job all the way through. And the biggest mistake I made in the beginning was me and my brother were working together to quote, but at times he was so busy that I was just throwing numbers on things that because I couldn't wait
Mm,
for him to give me an answer. And then he was,
sure.
we were getting all this work and we were fairly busy, but we weren't making any money because it was costing us money to actually do the work that we were doing,
Oh
which is why
gosh.
not all
Yeah.
growth is good growth.
That is sage advice
Yeah.
learned from the trenches yourself. So that's a good one. Any other advice beyond that incredibly excellent advice you just gave?
I think that my last pieces of advice would be never be afraid to ask questions or say you need help. You never know who's going to be there to catch you or, give
Yeah.
you the most solid piece of advice you've ever heard, but you're never going to get it if you don't say you need it. And then my last piece of advice is I would say that relationships matter more than I think people realize in this industry. I've seen the trends where the buyers just want to sit behind a computer and they don't want to have those conversations with you. But I've found over the last probably year and a half or so, the more conversations, the more Zoom calls I can get a buyer on, the more work I can get out of them because I'm building a relationship with them. I'm forming, you know, dare I say, a friendship. I'm able to speak a little bit more candidly. Hey, we have some open capacity here. Do you have anything that you want to throw in there? I'm creating these conversations that aren't just sales related. They're how can I help you related? How can I make you better at your job? And
Mm.
you can't have those types of conversations simply through email.
Oh man, you're dropping knowledge bombs left and right. This is so good.
I've learned so
And
much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Those personal relationships do matter. Yeah, getting on Zoom calls, taking them to lunch, whatever it might be, getting them to really know you, know your business, know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, great advice. And the asking for help part, I've shared this many times on the show, but, after 9/11, my shop was absolutely on the ropes. Like we were going to be insolvent in a few weeks. We couldn't pay payroll. Just our work had dried up. We didn't know what to do. And, uh, asked for help and, found a great advisor through our local small business development center. And he helped us save our business. There's no two ways about it. And would never have, we would not have, we would not have survived if we hadn't asked for that help. So I think that's awesome advice. Hope everyone takes it in. This industry is full of a lot of people that are really hard workers, really have a lot of grit. Maybe a little bit of ego about having to be the best at everything. And it's okay to accept the fact that you're not excellent at every aspect of the business. And it's okay to ask for help. And it's essential. So I appreciate you sharing that. Any last advice on what just any shop should be doing these days to succeed?
I think that's something that all shops of all sizes should be focusing really on adaptability. Manufacturing landscape is changing so rapidly every single day. I swear I open my email and every day something is changing, whether that be pricing pressures or supply chain fluctuations. We've got labor shortages, we've got reshoring efforts. Technology is constantly changing.
Hmm.
And I think the shops that are going to thrive are the ones that are able to stay flexible and adapt and are willing to continuously improve through all of that instead of just relying on the way it's always been because,
Hmm.
we found we couldn't rely on the way it's always been. We had to change. We were forced to change. And the more we adapted to the changes that we needed to make, the faster we were able to grow.
Oh man, you're just full of wisdom, Ashley. Wise beyond your years. That's great advice. Yeah, what do they say? The most dangerous words are it's we've always done it that way, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
If I had a dollar for every time my dad said that to me in the beginning, I
wow. Well, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Congratulations and well done on everything you've achieved over the last few years. Just truly inspiring. I'm
thank you.
so
Thanks for
happy for
having
you
me on.
guys.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I
Yeah.
honestly, if it wasn't for you kind of reaching out to me, I don't know where I would be. today because you were the first person that kind of opened a door and said, hold on a minute. So I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah, yeah. I'm super glad we met and got to help your shop out. So, all right. So, if people want to learn more about Mills Machine Works, send you orders, RFQs, just learn more about your story, have you on their podcast as well, where would you direct them?
Millsmachineworks.com that you can find all of our contact information there, but we're also on Facebook and Instagram, just at Mills Machine Works. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Ashley Parent, on LinkedIn.
Okay. Do you want to share the exciting news you got this morning?
I got the largest order in my company history today. So this order is about 95% of the total revenue we made last year.
That is truly incredible. That is
Yeah.
truly incredible. What a cherry on the top. That is very
Yes.
awesome. Well,
Yes.
congratulations on that, and just absolute best of luck. Stay in touch, and yeah, keep sharing on LinkedIn what's going on with you guys.
I will. I feel like I've been a little crickets. I've been so busy, but I need to get back over there.
You have a huge community rooting for you. So, all right. Well, thank you again, Ashley. Great having you on today.
Thank you.